nice to have so many here. You know, this was a tough blow after losing Mom. But we've got so many memories of Dad. Has everybody seen all the photos? Pretty fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. I have a poem I want to read, and Mike wasn't big on poetry by any means. His inspiration helped to write, though. This is from my others. You can't see me hiding, but when you're sitting in your stand, you will not own. Sitting right above you, stand of my own. When you scrapes and rub that monster buck, remember what I taught you, get after him and good luck. You're true mountain men, like me. You can't see me, but I'm watching from behind that tree. You can't see me hiding. You're standing on the back looking for birds that die. I'll be on the stern, another set of sharp eyes. When you cast your plug for a strike, I'm rooting for you with my might. You set the hook and then gets taut. I'm so proud of you in the fight that you fought. You can't see me because I'm hiding. Buckies make their spring ton. Take an extra one for me. Let's go have some fun. Now toss gentle and give him say. I'll pray Flammer to end out the day. For many years, fish side by side. Now take kids out for me on this amazing ride. You can't see me hiding, but when you're chest deep ocean searching for gems, I'm watching pride because you're who I am. Teach others dig for steamers on the shore. Count the days till you bring back for more. Share them for the water, because I'll be there enjoying with you. Watching my grandkids growing up just you. You can't see me hiding. When you scout for in the new fallen snow, I'll be right behind you, but my tracks they won't show. Remember I taught you when you were a kid, the adventures we went on, and all that we did. If you listen to my voice, you will hear yell, my son, I'll love it, and I'm proud of you. That's my brother. All right. No more sappy stuff. I'm going to share stories about when we were kids. As you can see photos, we had a lot of pictures. Dad was an actor you never knew. He was joking or dead serious. He said anything. He'd say it all with a straight face, but you just had no idea. One of my favorite stories is when we were all 5 of us. We were all about a year apart. So we started from this high to this high. 5 of us packed in the back of the car. We'd go out every day fishing or hunting or clamming, crabbing or what have you. And many times a week we'd be down a back dirt road and Dad would really pull the car aside, go in the park, and he'd go rough into the woods. And us kids all of us would watch out the window for Dad to come back. And it took a couple minutes, and eventually Dad would come back. So he was in leaves and beetles and rolling around in the ground, sometimes walking with a limp, you know. Other times he had a stick in his hand and he was looking at his shoulder. He'd get in the car and say, tell us. And he'd, well, nah. We'd say, tell us. And tell us about how he almost caught that baby this time. He said, and when Dad was, he wasn't just, he sailing over the stalls and dodging pine trees. He was bearing into the woods. He was after something, and every time it was a bear. All for us kids' entertainment. Tell us, I dove for it this time, grabbed it by the legs, and I dragged it back, and I picked it. And when I turned around at home, Mama Bear was in there. And the story would go on about tussle with Mama Bear. Sometimes it was no Mama Bear there. He could hear Papa Bear back, so we had to climb a tree away from him. But I mean, fantastic stories, and they went on for years and years, and it was all for entertainment for us. He took the time to do that, kids. It wasn't until years later we found out I just had to go pee. I remember one winter it was so cold out, and we had ready for that baby bear in the fort in the backyard. Because he told us Mom wasn't going to let it in the house. We were building a fort. We spent so much time on this baby fort. When it got out, we brought all our blankets from the house out to the fort. A couple weeks later, Mom found them after they'd been out in the snow. She was not very about that. She never spoiled. It's fun, you know. It was great entertainment, and it was great family time, and we loved that memory. I'm sure one of the kids remembers how many times we were Dad to get us at bear. Another thing that was cool, the big sandbank in town, in the middle of town. It had a big giant pit for all the residents to take in during the winter. Well, it was there all around, and it was huge. And whenever we were in town with Dad, with Mom, we would cheer for Dad. Please, to the sandbank. He'd say, nah. You gotta build up the anticipation, you know. Get to the road, and sure enough, would take that, we'd cheer. And we'd come up the sandbank, jump off the top, time and time again. Every once in a while, we got Dad too, and jump off the top. We'd be filled, as my mom would say, every crack of us, of all 5, and Dad, with sand. And Dad's famous words were, "Okay, don't tell your mom." So we heard that a lot from Dad. Mom always knew, because when we took off our clothes, there was sand piles all over us. But again, it never spoiled our fun because we were having a mess with Dad. She had a big mess up, but she did it, and we had a good with Dad doing that with. My first hunt, Dad, I think I was probably 8. Dad said, "Let's go hunt." Put on my boots, and I walked him. I remember we left our property, walked down a dirt road. We crossed another field, went through some woods, and got a third field. I was exhausted, and I was to keep up with Dad the whole way. When we found the woods going in, he would point out, "There's the coon tree, there's that thing, and there's things for me to remember." Everything looked the same. When you're 8, I was worried about trying to keep up with Dad and trying not to step branches. Dad, it was like he was walking on water, and there's not a sound from his feet. Everything was me, and sticks and everything. Well, as we were walking forever, it seemed, and out of nowhere I heard, pow! I jumped out of skin. I never heard a deer, and I was around. Dad, there he is, let's go get him. And we walked over. I couldn't believe it. Dad had got it. I never even got to see it. And then he said, "Oh, I forgot at home. Kelly, you go get it?" For a second I thought, he's just kidding, but he looked dead serious, and I was like, "Oh crap, I'm gonna die out here. No idea where I'm at." I turned around and said, "That way." He's like, "No, that way." So I started heading out. "Get back here," I broke here. So never forget that first hunt with Dad. It was fantastic. When my brother was about this, he must have been 7 years old. Dad grabbed him one day from the house. We were out the house. "Joe, there's a goose in the field. You gotta shoot him." And I was very shy, quiet then, and I think Dad's way of building confidence in him. And the way ended up at the top of the hill. You could see way down a giant field. Well, about 3 yards out in the field, Joe saw a little black speck. Dad said, "Shoot him." So Joe did. All these cheered. Dad had some for them. They all cheered, and they went down, and they goose. And figured out years later, there's no way in heck I couldn't see that goose. Dad shot it. They put it down there. Build my confidence.
That was just a couple weeks ago.
But isn't that fantastic? It'd be time to do that for yourself. You need to take a minute, to do something for your kid. Jenny found a stray cat. She was a little kid. She found a stray cat, and she wanted to keep it. And Dad, "Well, you keep it as long as I name it." And she said, "Good. What's his name?" He says, "Prairie." We had Prairie for all the years. Another thing about Jenny, Jen's the youngest, and there was a little drama. Youngest, she was always getting hurt at school, and Mom would get called to come pick up or take her to the doctor's or something. And I remember one time in particular, Jenny got hurt in gym class. She was carrying on, and Dad came. And remember? The X-ray. Dad got her, and he brought her to the hospital because the nurse said she's freeze. Can't move her. It must be broken. Well, Dad looked at it, and he could there's nothing wrong. So he's sitting in the emergency room with Jeff, and he says, "They use their X-ray. They do it a different way now." He said, "You're going to see a light, a crawler, appear on your hand. Hold it really still, and there's going to be a needle about this long. It comes down really right through your hand and back. But hold it still, because it'll hurt less." And so she didn't know if he was joking or not. She got into the X-ray room, hand down. She saw the crosshair on her hand. Praise Jesus, he was healed! Dad had a way of teaching us lessons, Remember Chris coming in the door, all of it. It was a spring-loaded door, and when we were 5 of us coming in and out doors, Dad was a vet. He's banging, and he's been diving for cover, and he just told us, don't slam the door. Finally, one day, I remember Chris, he was the one that happened to snore when Dad had enough. And so Dad he sat down in the door with Chris. He locked the door and shut the door. And he did. Come back in, shut the door. For half an hour, Dad sat there, and Chris opened the door out, opened and come in. None of us kids would ever do that again. It was a good way, the patience, and he took the time to teach us in his own way. I remember Jenny, she got us in trouble stomping up the stairs. "Stop your stomping. Stop stomping." Finally one day, held her by the hand at the table. He said, "You stomp." And when she got done, stomp some more. She got done, you stomp more. She stomped so that took it right out of her. Stomped again going upstairs. Chris was always a wiry one. And he wanted to go tripping. He was little. He didn't have a 22 yet, so then 7 or 8. Dad set up a line with him. and it was Chris's first line. Chris was out at 7 or 8 years old and checked that line. All he had was a BB gun down. So Chris went out to check it. Half an hour goes, Chris isn't back, and Mom started saying, Dad, go get Chris. Nope, he can handle what he's doing. Another half an hour by, and Mom's really freaking. Gotta bring Chris home. Something must have happened. Nope, he knows what he's doing. Well, a while later, we hear a racket outside. Dad started cheering. He knew what it was. Chris had caught a big coon trap. And the gun can't kill it. Got a chain about this. Chris dug up, spiked it in the ground, drugged the thing all the way. He weighed 60 at the time, and the coon was probably bigger than he was. You know, Dad was so proud. And again, he let Chris do that on his own. He knew what he was raising his boys, give confidence, and letting them take the bull by the horns and do what they knew that they were to do. My brother Brian, when he was, I don't know, I think memory, he was probably 12, 13. My dad had taken snipe hunting. It was his path in becoming a man in the Hlavac family. Well, we always heard stories about snipe, but always when the guys were in, and we really weren't involved. It was something sacred family. We only heard stories now and again, but we all knew it. We wanted to hear about it and know what was going on with hunting. We're all jealous. Was the first one that got out. Well, I had been preparing bait for Brian for weeks. And it was a burlap bag, and it was fish guts and deer entrails, the nastiest mess imagine in there for weeks. Well, Uncle Mark, where are you? You were in a country, weren't you? Yeah. They took Brian out, Uncle Mark's property in the swamps, way back in the dusk. Told Brian, you stand like this with the burlap bag open, face right above it. You stand in the woods, and we're going to do a drive. And we're going to get that snipe right at you. Catch him, bring it back to the house. That's your path right there. And so Brian stood out, and he stood there, and he stood out that dark. You know, time by, and he's like, the guy should have been back by now. And he's like, you know, I've never seen this in a book. I don't know what this is. After, I don't know, it seemed like hours, we finally made it through the dark back house, and there were the guys drinking beer and having a good time. Cheered for him, welcomed him into being a man in the Hlavac family. He passed the test. He went out there all by himself hunting. And Dad took the time to do this for his son, you know. When us kids would get off the bus, we had a long driveway, and it was crushed trees. A few times, sometimes it would for weeks. Dad ran behind a tree, and he would shout and scare Jesus out of us kids. But it wasn't until it was all the time. And we'd forget about it. And we'd come down the driveway, songs or whatever. Dad would jump out, same thing again. He was so hard at us kids. He thought it was the thing. But it was all, he took the time to do that, you know? Jump in bushes and just half to death. Well, Dad had boxing gloves on Chris for Christmas. They were little. And they opened them up in the middle of opening presents. Opened them up. Box gloves. We all grew Muhammad Ali. So they were like, box down. Mom said, no, we're going to finish opening presents. I remember, no, let the boys put on the boxing gloves. And so they're huge and they're padded. Anybody's going to get hurt. And they started spinning. Joe caught the right hook, his nose, and blood spattered all over Christmas presents, all over the couch. Chris was crying, was screaming. You know, Dad was in the dust again, but he was used to it. What's that, Joe? Dad taught me to drive, and I was 12. I remember it was raining, it was dark out, and he put her next to Mike's vehicle in Voluntown, and he got out and he said, "You're driving." He came around, he opened, I was joking, but he wasn't. I got in the driver, he told me, adjust my words and figure out where, I said, well, what does which? I had no idea, I was a little kid. But somehow we made him, and at the end of the drive, he got out and he come around. Every time we go to town, it's just me, you're going to do the drive. But what were his last words he told me? Don't tell mother. And for years, starting when I was 12, I could always drive. Yeah. It was something always, Dad didn't do things other people did, but, you know, he never got in trouble, except for Mom, you know, yells. Or I could stand up here and tell stories. Just whenever we work cards, we usually come out on a Friday, and it stunk because we always wanted to go. Joe and I was on the same day, and he always went hunting every day after school, and Dad gave in, you don't have homework. Teacher, I said so. You don't have to do that. Just fly rule. But he wouldn't do his homework. His grades were okay because he was smart. But every single comment was from every teacher. saying, no effort, Joe won't do work, da-da-da. Dad was that. He was out hunting. He was doing stuff. I remember one day, instead of to Mom and Dad to sign back to school, I said, let's give it to Dad. We did. We gave a report to Dad, and he looked at him. He said, oh, I'm in trouble for this one. And so he opened the top and he threw him in. He said, tell your mother. Well, that was great and all, but that was when we had permanent reports. They last the whole year. Joe and I had to go and explain to the teachers how to throw our report card in the wood stove. That was a rough place that we got put into. But again, Dad thought that they were prior life. He said the school has 6 hours a day. When you come home, you ought to be able to do what you want to do. And you know, he would tell us all the time, you tell the teacher I said so. We put a few choice words. Of course, we could never tell teachers any of what he was saying. You know, he had our back then, you know. Dad died way too, 68, too young to die. And to something good come out so I can feel better. And he's just standing here, you people, telling you stories about what a good father Dad was, especially when we were kids and we did it. Love on your family. You can't do anything about the past. You can't go back and change it. But your wife, husband, your kids, parents, got them now. Love on them. You love on them. You time for them. These handful of stories shared, you see little silly things can just be in your heart and they can become you become. The time with your kid, unplugged. You know, we grew up in the middle of Vine. We had 3 channels. That's how plugged in we were. Plugged and time with your family. Love on them. Just do what you got to. You know, if one of you met a relationship out and it was work, you know. Dad was an avid fisherman, like you see, but one of his most recent joys was that fishing. And this van would come, and Dad, I got to go on adventures with him too. They'd pick him up at the venture. They would take him all day. One day we dropped him off. It was funny. It was going on a field trip. They threw him leaving for the day. And they took him out in this huge breakfast. Dad, dozens and dozens and dozens of vets. Huge breakfast. They did him like the hero that he is. Set him up with fish poles, and they went fishing the whole day. They blast. Dad wasn't able to take himself in for the last little while here to go take a vet, which was awesome. There's some photos over here. One of them is my favorite. There's one here of a straw competition we did just a few weeks ago. Raised money for Take a Vet. Dad was so proud to sit at the table and the donation box there. And the following week, which was a couple weeks ago, went to a Take a Vet event where they had a luncheon for all of us. And my uncle, myself, and Dad go, and they honored there. He had a check that he's giving them. He was really honored. It's wonderful. Dad loved that organization. Well, they had a live band playing rock and roll, and Dad loved rock and roll. And he stood up, and I thought he was on his back. And he wasn't very steady on his past few months. And he walked up, and I walked in, and we danced. Dad and I got to dance. So it was like weeks ago. 40-something, I got to have it with my dad. That is such an awesome memory and awesome that I have that I live for the rest of my life. I saw my dad the day before I found him unconscious. I was on his pellet stove in trouble. And I left. It was a thing I always said and always did when I got ready to leave. Give him a hug, and he hugs me, and I said, I love you, Dad. I love you too, girl. And I said, drive careful. I always do. I started walking down the way. The last words I ever heard my father are so precious because I get to hold her forever. I heard him say to me, wow, isn't she just a wonderful person? And just hearing the words was the last words I ever heard speak. So be that wonderful person to your husband, and be that wonderful person to your wife, be that wonderful person to your kids. It is an awesome thing to know that my dad said as the last I got to hear him say. Again, I could go forever, but my brother Brian's going to come up here for a minute, but I invite Ray up. Ray is from Take a Fishing, and he's one of the guys helps this organization, so he can tell you just a little bit.
Don't leave.
No, I'll stand right.
It's like special to be here, and I want to say right off, on the behalf of a whole lot of people that volunteer to get our vets out of the environment, out for fishing. It's that simple. And obviously, Kelly explained it so well, what happens there and how it goes. It's kind of bittersweet because my own dad about a month ago, and I love what he said about you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love where he's a character.
Yeah.
I met your dad a few times that he was there, and that last time he was there without you, he was talking about you. And he was gone, and for pictures I saw that, you know, he keeps it pretty straight, but he had a twinkle in his eye. He he was talking about what your plans were to fundraise like that. I just think letting us be his life and of you. And thank you to all of us here for yours. I did not get to see myself, and our volunteers had, and we discovered that there are folks out there that want to help with vets and reach out to those that need tending to, that get out and do stuff. And it's not always easy, you know. Typically walking off to the VFW post and say hi. But through vet fishing, we magic formula, and it's just called hospitality. And you know, we've made some good ones, and we found a way of transportation. We rounded up also fishing pole, you know. And in the spring, we found a bunch of fishing clubs up in this part of Connecticut too that like to share their fishes and stock their pond, throw 100 to 1,000 fish in the pond, and have a good time. And stay in touch with Kelly. So we'll let you know when we're doing some, and if there's some folks to pitch in and help, it'd be a pleasure to have you.
Up at Dick Hlavac, take a vet fishing wheel. A lot of you have asked the boxes, and it's right up.
Anyway, thank you much. And, yeah. Thank you, brother.
I'm Brian. I'm with the bunch. I really want to talk about how my dad's survival and his skills fighting for his family. I came to the city. I met my dad when I was 8. I met Audrey, only child, had a family, and now I had a father. I had 2 brothers and sisters. And it was an amazing for me. Coming from projects, really, up the town over here, which was like God's country. The difference was really overwhelming. It was where I couldn't wait for some of it. I couldn't wait for the holiday week. Spend time with Dad. What I found so amazing, and I'm sure, however, you guys know my his ability to provide land and the ocean surpasses I've ever even dealt with before today. So anyone who could get out there and get on with everything available, and he got it for us and put us with it. I recall being the best hunter he was. I remember only a handful of times coming back from a hunt without something to eat. Normally it was to eat, and boys, we'd have to get out there and drag them. It was coming through the door. I didn't get anything but, you know, buckets, you guys, a huge rat patch. We're going to go get them. I mean, it was, now we have cereal with rabbits on them, not just goat milk. I'll tell you, when I was 8 and I rode there for the first time, it was goat. We just goat twice, and that was our milk, that was our butter. Mom used to make butter out of it, and cream and everything else. Same thing when I'd be there for the summer, and every single day, as Kelly, we would do something to be influential for us. Not a day went by, nothing happened. Something of significance every single day. Say, let's go, we're going to the ocean, we're going to go mussels today. Huh? Yeah, low tide said, let's go. And we'd go, sure enough, low tide, and all mussels off the side of the beach. And we'd go and we'd spend the day cleaning them, and we'd spend the night eating. And then the day it would be, you know what, we're going to firelight tonight. What's firelighting? Oh, love this. We're going to go at night, we're going to catch crab, it's low tide. And we'd be out there all night. Whenever low was, we'd be out there till 3 in the morning. And of course, home, Mom, the girl wake up because all the sauce we eat right then and there. It doesn't matter, 1 o'clock or if it's in the morning. We ate soft shell.
Mom told me I was old enough.
That's